Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, and welcome to Authors on Mission podcast, the podcast committed to bringing you top-tier insights and strategies from established experts who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every single one of us: aging and fitness. We're honored to have with us Steve McKinney, a physical trainer with over 30 years of experience, jiu-jitsu black belt, pastor, and author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, The Gospel of Fitness. Steve has developed what he calls the 3W approach to fitness: weight training, walking, and watching your diet. A system that's crafted through decades of meticulous note-keeping and client success stories. We're going to dive into all that really soon, but first, Steve, thank you for joining us today to share your wisdom on aging gracefully through fitness. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Danielle, and it's my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be on your show, so thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. To all of our listeners, I was just talking to Steve about how really impressive all he does is. Like he, is just really well-rounded, knows all these incredible things. I mean, jiu-jitsu, that's over my head, but I'm really looking forward to diving into this. So yeah, it's an honor to have you on.
Love it.
Yeah, so why don't you start off by telling us a little bit more about your journey? I mean, it spans personal training, jiu-jitsu, pastoral work, and now authorship. So, how did you get from all of that to writing a book? What led you to open that document and start typing?
Well, the big thing is I've always loved lifting weights. When I was 9 years old, we had my grandfather took me to a place called Kmart. You probably don't even know what that is, but there's a place called Kmart, and it was in our area. It was just a local store, and he bought me some weights, and they were these plastic weights, and I got home and I started just lifting and picking them up, and I was just fascinated with weightlifting. I don't know why, I just connected to that. Some people call it the iron bug because you're lifting iron and they say the iron bug bit you. So that's kind of where that started. But I also loved athletics. I love sports. And so I was a competitive bodybuilder. I played in our area slow pitch softball was a big thing. I did that for a living for a lot of years. And so I didn't just want to be a bodybuilder, I wanted to still be an athlete. And so I connected those two together. And then as far as being a pastor and how that connects, I think that, I just look at it from this perspective. We've been given this incredible gift of a body, which is super complex but super incredible as well. And I think we have a responsibility to the best of our ability just to take care of that. And, as far as writing the book, I'm actually 64 years old now. I still weight train regularly. I still train jiu-jitsu a couple days a week with guys that are much, much, much younger than me. And I also have a grandson. And so he is just a joy. And so I wanted a legacy. I've been preaching this same fitness message for over 30 years. And I just wanted to have that. I wanted to share it with the world. And so fortunately, I've been able to kind of do that. And so it's very exciting to do. And I just love it. I just love every part of what I do. I preach today. I'm on a podcast tonight. I'll train clients tomorrow. I'll lift weights tomorrow. So yeah, and I'll take Tuesday as a rest day, and then I'll come back Wednesday and start over again.
I love that. I love how you just gave us a little bit of a scope of your day. It must be interesting to just switch hats throughout the day, but still, be true to yourself and be practicing every element of every.
And I do think they're integrated. I think everything's integrated together for what I do. So for me, it's just a joy.
Would you mind speaking a little bit more on that? Like, how have these different paths influenced your approach to fitness and wellness? I mean, surely they're all integrated, but would you like to share us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So for me, it's at my age, I have friends who, there's some local factories and people worked in local factories, and that's great. I mean, everybody has their life path. For me, those guys, a lot of those guys are retired. And people ask me, well, what would you do if you retired, or when are you going to retire? And I said, listen, if I retire, I would still preach, I would still train clients, I would still lift weights, and I would still do jujitsu. So basically, in a sense, kind of retired already. And there are things that I do every day. This is kind of how I live my life. And so, for me, it's not necessarily a job. It's just my life. And so, and they all work together. That, like they're just connected. And I get to meet so many, new people in the middle of it. I get to create great relationships. And as I said earlier, I'm around a lot of younger people because people my age generally don't train a lot of jujitsu. And so I get to build relationships and kind of help mentor young people in the middle of that because, people struggle in life, and, the younger generation, they need some direction and some guidance. And I love to be a voice of reason for them and, just kind of give them some guidelines and some hope in the middle of that.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. You have a passion for it too, which just, even amplifies that for sure. So let's dive a little bit into your book, The 3W Approach to Fitness. Can you break down why these three components work so synergistically together? We talked a little bit about this, but perhaps,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how you came up with the three W's as well.
Absolutely. So when I started this journey many, many years ago, I did keep detailed records. I, wrote down everything that people did. And, what I learned early on was that I could get people to do like a 6-week diet or a 12-week diet. And what I noticed though, was a lot of those people went back to their old lifestyle after that 6 or 12 weeks. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. This isn't working. How can I create a system of fitness forever? I call it a lifestyle of fitness. And so what I do is I have people, weight training is the number one thing. That's the first W. When I do, like I just got off a book tour, I do a lot of local speaking on the book and on my system. And I tell people, hold up 3 fingers and it makes a W. And that's the easy way to remember it. It's weight training, walking, and watching your diet. So I have a system. I have a system for everything. I have everything that I do is, even with the weights, everything that I do, it's for a reason. There's nothing that I do that doesn't have a purpose. And so weight training is the number one thing. And weight training, it builds muscle. And as we age, and I'm talking at the age of 35, we begin to lose muscle tissue at 1 to 2% per year, which doesn't seem like much when you're young. But as you get older, those things continue to add up. And so that aging process really becomes difficult without muscle. Muscle is the mechanism that keeps us moving. It helps every little thing that we do. So weight training is the first thing. And I only suggest 2 15-minute sessions per week. And I can explain that further. I know that's kind of unbelievable for some people, but it's, like I said, I've got this down to a science, and it's based on science. Well, the second thing is walking. And a lot of the clients that come to me, a lot of the people that have bought my book, most people struggle with keeping their weight under control. That is a big thing in our society because we have so much food that's available to us. And so when they come to me, I explain exactly how to lose weight. And it's not just losing weight, it's losing fat. Body fat is what you want to lose. You want to keep your muscle. And so I want them to get less body fat. So one of the things that I suggest is walking daily, but there's a way that I do this, or a way that I suggest it. I tell people to walk at a moderate pace for 30 minutes right after dinner. And I was reading a study many, many years ago, and the study, this guy had checked calorie burn 3 hours after an activity. And the activity that he measured was walking. He measured 3 different forms of it. He measured walking, he measured eating and walking, and he measured walking and eating. And then he checked, and he was looking at how much calorie burn happened. Well, what he learned was eating and walking did the best, and it actually increased your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, by 25 to 30%. You don't have to walk fast. You walk at a moderate pace right after you eat, and that makes such a big difference. And it really helps in body fat loss. And even people who aren't, who don't need to lose body fat, walking after dinner does work best because it aids in digestion. It makes you feel better. And I tell people, try to walk outside. Before I started this podcast, I just did a 30-minute walk. It's beautiful outside. It's sunny. I needed some sunshine, and it just makes you feel good. And I always say also, look around when you're walking. Look at this beautiful world in which we live and everything that we get to enjoy. Right now the trees are budding and flowers are out. It's just beautiful, and it's so healthy, and it's so beneficial for your brain. It is so helpful. And then the third W is watching your diet. And watching your diet is just being very aware, being very cognizant of what you're eating and trying to eat real food, not processed food, because food is medicine. And I have a story behind that if you'd like to hear it on how food is medicine, okay? So a couple years ago, I had a very stressful situation in my life. And it's, just involved people, and, we all go through those things, but this one was really, really stressful. And I noticed that I got really sick after that stressful situation. And I developed this cough. And I called my doctor. They thought it was pneumonia. They put me on antibiotics. They gave me inhalers. The cough never went away. And it just stayed there. And it stayed for 2 years. It's just been a crazy journey for me. Well, about 8 months ago, I went to, I've done x-rays and the whole 9 yards. I went to a ENT, or nose and throat specialist. And I had actually went to a pulmonologist, and he goes, your problem is not with your lungs. He said, it's something else. So the next step was to go to an ENT. Well, they had diagnosed me with something called silent GERD. And I'd never heard of that before. There's GERD, which is just the normal heartburn that people have. And a lot of people have that. But silent GERD is really interesting, because what it is the muscle on the end of your esophagus begins to relax. It's called your esophageal sphincter. And what happens is your stomach content begins to come back up your esophagus, and it aspirates into your lungs. And so it causes all kinds of problems. And so what I did was I changed my diet. Drastically changed my diet, and I changed my lifestyle. Now, they gave me something called a PPI. I've never been on drugs before in any medicine, because I'm always been very, very healthy. So it was really hard to take medicine for me. I'm trying to get off of it, but I took that, it helped. But the diet change helped, and then I made a lifestyle change. I start just kind of controlling my stress levels a little bit more, and then I ended up going to a gastroenterologist. And they wanted to do biopsies, which is very, very scary, because it could lead to like esophageal cancer and all these types of things. And so I went there, they did 4 biopsies. Everything came back normal, thank God for that. And what the guy said was I had esophagitis. And he said, but he could tell what I was doing was working. And he said, I could see where it was, and you still have some, but it's healing. And so he said, keep doing what you're doing. And that's just a personal story on how food is medicine. And I went on what's called a low acid diet. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not fun. I can't eat any processed food, but the way I look at it is I'm healthy, I'm doing well, and I'm getting better, and I'm super thankful for that. And so watching your diet is so vitally important, and it really can save your life.
Yeah, well, first off, I'm glad you're okay. That's a pretty crazy story. But what's interesting too is the fact that you're able to share that story with your audience, with me, with I'm sure it's also mentioned in your book, of course, as well. It adds a layer of realism to everything you're saying, really grounds it in fact as well, gives you credibility. So it takes a lot to share a story like that that's scary and personal, but I commend you for that, because that's what makes or breaks a really good self-help book, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you so much. No, I do. I mention it, when I'm preaching to people. I mentioned today to my congregation, I said, hey, look, I know y'all been praying for me. I'm going to give you a health. I don't hide it. I don't hide any of that stuff, because people think, oh, you lift weights and you're so healthy. But I live life just like anyone else. And I am very healthy. I'm very, very thankful for my health. But I also deal with problems just like everyone else does. And sometimes when you're doing a lot of things and you age, you have to be able to adapt to that aging, because you think, I still think I'm young. In my mind, I'm still young. And so I can still do all these these things, but I have to be wise in how I approach things. And I like to be open and honest. And my reasoning for that is my job, the way I look at it is, even with this book, I want to help people, but I also want to help people with the struggles that we have in everyday life, because we all have struggles.
Yeah, definitely. And, not only that, but when you have those stories, you are helping people with their struggles because it shows them that they're not alone too, right? Like it's a whole other element to it.
Absolutely.
So kind of, moving along and talking about the book a little bit more. You mentioned that America is the fastest nation on earth and we're facing increasing rates of depression. How does your approach address both the physical and mental health aspects of this challenge?
That's a great question. And I write about this in the book about 2 years ago. Now, here's kind of the things that I write about in the book. One of the things that I write about is I write about the things that we're fighting. And we're fighting age. We're fighting what's called sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. And I talked about that a bit earlier. We are fighting the loss of muscle and fat gain. We're fighting the loss of balance as we get older, and that happens to so many people. But here's the other thing we're fighting. We're fighting hopelessness, because a lot of people walk through life and they're very, very hopeless. And I'll give you another example for that one. About 2 years ago, I had about 8 funerals in a 3-month period. And
wow.
Here's what was interesting. One day I'm walking through my house and I'm thinking, now the people the funerals, a lot of them were very close friends. And so I'm going from one funeral to the next. But what I noticed was when I do funerals, I always think to myself, okay, you're a professional, you have to make sure that you're helping people in the middle of this. You can't fall apart. So what I was not doing was I was not giving myself a time to grieve. And I remember being upstairs and just thinking, wow, I am incredibly sad and I don't know why. And then I realized what happened. And like I said, I write about that in the book. Just the thought of a friend, her name was Karen, that I had recently buried came to my mind. And I thought, you know what? I've not given myself time to grieve. And I got to step back from this and I have to allow myself to emotionally heal from what I've been going through. Now, for me, the beauty of exercise is when I go to the gym, it's a sanctuary, it's a safe place. And when I talk about lifting weights, I talk about connecting your mind to the muscle. And what happens is you actually are in the moment and you're thinking about what you're doing. And when you do that, the rest of the world goes away. You're just in that particular moment. It's just you're being present in the moment, and it's such a stress reduction. And then the other part of that is, as I said, walking and just enjoying that walk. And then as I train jujitsu as well, that is also a safe place for me because I'm just thinking about what I am in the moment. And I think that's really, really important because it shuts that process of obsessive thoughts that can go into our mind. It shuts that down and it gives you something else, and it just changes the trajectory of your mind at that particular moment. And I think those things really are helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us because it's, something we can all relate to. We all need to know these things and be able to apply it to ourselves. So, and I like also the way that you mentioned that you teach us in all different aspects of the things that you do, to be it the jiu-jitsu or the congregation. So it's, again, messages that resonate with everybody. It's a tale of a really good book because any reader, any audience can relate to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that being said, I'd like to transition a little bit into the writing process itself. What prompted you to transform your years of experience into a book? I think we might
question.
A little bit.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I think we already went into this a little bit, like your desire to share with the others, perhaps.
Yeah, but here's how it kind of came about.
Yeah.
So years ago, I train a lot of people, and people kind of know I'm a trainer, and they know I have a unique approach to training. I was at a conference years ago. I was at a conference in Florida, like 10 years ago, and I met a friend. It was a pastor's conference, and I met a friend there. I'd known him online, and so he says, "Hey, let's go to the gym and work out." And I said, "Absolutely." And he goes, "Can you train me?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to train you." So I trained him. I give him one of my short, high-intensity workouts, and he looks at me and he goes, "That is the best workout I've ever had in my life." And so I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that." Well, we became friends, and he has a podcast, and I was on his podcast a lot. He would always ask me questions. And so in my personal training business, I have an email list, and I'm always writing emails, and I'm always writing things for my clients just to educate them and to make them understand things more. So behind the scenes, I was writing, like just kind of writing all my stuff down, all the things that I've learned over the years. And I just do that because I was just going to send it out to my clients. Well, my friend one time, his name's Pete. He calls me and he goes, Steve, I have a question about this. I have a question about this. And I said, Pete, you know what? I have a book and I'm 90% done with it. And I answer all these questions in this book. And he said, well, that's interesting. He says, I have a publishing company that we just started. And he said, send me your book and I'll see if we can work together. And so I sent him the book and he goes, oh, we'd love to take you on as a client. So that is how it started in the middle of that. And so from there, I went back and I went over and just started thinking about it in book form. And I was sitting down one day and I was thinking, I don't really know how to write a book, but I know how to preach a sermon. And so what I did was, the book is a series of fitness sermons in the way that I do things. I put them in categories, I make it understandable, I take personal stories and I put them in there so that the audience can relate to what I'm talking about based on that topic. And so now when I have people and I was just talking to a lady who was at my nephew's birthday party yesterday, and she's from out of town, and she came in and she goes, I didn't bring my book with me. I wanted you to sign it, but she says, every time I read it, it's like you're in my head talking, just like when you preach to me. And I'm like, that is so awesome. And I've heard that more than once. And the beauty of it also is so many people are being helped by this, because it's practical and it's simple. It's not easy. There's nothing easy in life, but I break everything down and make it very simple for people to understand.
Yeah, definitely. And even the fact that, she said, it sounds like you're talking to me, right? That just goes to show that you had just an expert way of making your voice, relevant on the page, making it sound like you. That's tricky to do. A lot of people write and they, might sound like a robot or sound like somebody else, but it's good that, you made that real. Pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. And what I tried to do also is just the writing conventions that I used, every story that I tell, every illustration in a story form that I tell, I just put that into italics so that people could see that, hey, this is the story part. So I made it consistent across the book so that people can understand what I was telling them practically, but also what I was trying to illustrate in the middle of that through story.
Understood. Yeah, no, it's all like part of the writing process too. And since we're talking about it, I know you talk a lot about your personal experiences in the book, right? And you incorporate it all, but what kind of research did you have to do to sort of back all this up? I'm sure there was an extensive amount of it.
Absolutely, yes. I come from a background of what's called high intensity training, and I have obviously a boatload of books that I've read on that. And so I cited a lot of those sources, a lot of internet sources in the middle of that. But I've been researching this for many, many years. There's a guy that I just love. His name is Dr. Ellington Darden, and he's written over 70 books. And I actually booked a 3-hour meeting with him at his home, flew to Florida and met with him at his home and just had him, just sat with him, talked to him about what to do, how to approach things. And he was super duper helpful for me. And then I have other doctors that I cite in the middle of that. There's another doctor that I really like, Dr. Doug McGuff, and he has written the book Body by Science. So all these things are kind of part of what I have, cited, but also I take all those things and then I make them my own in a sense. I figure out what works best for me and my approach to training and my approach to writing and how I can help people to prove that there is actual science behind what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And it's really great to know that, not only did you do the research, but you found experts to help support your claims as well. And to any listeners today, it's so important to do that, to make yourself credible, to really, show that not only you know what you're talking about, but it's true, that it's in fact. It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious to know what key insights or techniques that you developed over the years were pretty challenging to write about. Was there any tip over others that you just found yourself stuck on, for example?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that I do when I train clients is something called time under tension. And time under tension is when you're doing an exercise, what you do, you load the muscle. And what I mean by that is that muscle is tense. And so let me give you an example. Like if a person goes to a gym and you look around to see what people do, they lift weights in a very, very fast fashion. They look at how much weight they're lifting and how many reps they can do, which is fine. But for me, what I have clients do is I have them keep the muscle under the load, and I have them go very slowly on the way up and very slowly on the way down. So they may go anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds for each part of that particular movement. Now, the problem with that for me was writing about that time under tension, because I keep my clients under the load. It's called being under that time under tension load for 60 to 90 seconds. That was really, really hard to communicate. And so what I decided to do, I went in a little bit of a different direction, because everybody universally knows weights and reps. And so what I did was I used 8 to 12 reps in a lot of the movements, and I instructed people to go 3 to 4 seconds on the way up and 3 to 4 seconds on the way down. Now, if you look at that, you're getting about 48 to 72 seconds time under load if you do it properly, which still falls right in the time frame that I'm looking for. And then I explain to people, when you get to that 12th rep, then you can add a small amount of weight to make sure you're getting stronger. I hope that makes sense, but it was not easy to communicate in the book. And I just didn't think that people could really grasp that advanced 60 to 90 second time under load thing, because it's so out of the box. But I put it into different language so people could actually understand it.
And hey, that's the most important thing to do also, right? To use language that, resonates with everybody. They don't have to be looking up words, not too much medical jargon or anything like that. So
Correct. Yes.
no, I'm glad that you were able to get over that hurdle. A lot of authors, they find a challenge and it takes them a while to figure out, okay, do I continue? Do I do something different? Right. So it's important to have those insights and tips and know, how to maneuver around.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
So I'm wondering, if readers can take away just one principle from your book that can change their lives, what might it be?
Oh, the thing I would say is it's possible. That would be my number one thing. It's possible. It's possible to age gracefully. It's possible to build muscle and to keep that muscle on as you age, and it's going to make your life so much better. It's possible to feel better. It's possible to, even though you failed before, to fail forward and to learn more and to keep trying. So my thought process on that, the one takeaway is you never give up, because it is possible. That's my number one thing.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, some people think, oh, there's no way I could ever do this, right? And that closed mindset is what prevents them from, trying it or sticking to it. So I do appreciate that a lot. And how about for the writers out there, right? What kind of tips might you offer for them exactly? Because, I mean, you went through this whole process, you had your ups and downs. What might somebody else need to keep in mind as they go about a similar process?
Yeah, your passion. You got to have passion. Passion is so important. You're going to have the blank page. You're going to have that blank screen with the cursor, and I think that's why they call it a cursor, because you're there looking at it, and you get frustrated with the middle of it, in the middle of it. You almost want to curse in the middle of that. But I think that in those times, I really think that maybe stepping away and getting a different thought process, but also bringing the passion that you have in your heart, the passion that you have, because I'm passionate about this stuff. I love talking about it, and I love writing about it. I have another book in my soul. I would call it The Gospel of Fitness Part 2. And I would explain to people how to go into the next direction. So that's in me. So I think that taking what's in you and letting it get out of you, being very creative, just taking things that you're looking at, thinking about those things. Maybe it's just a word that you're writing, just one word, and taking that word and just looking into the definitions of that one word and see where that takes you, just exploring, and you're embracing the process of not having anything to say, but yet still knowing there's something to say. And so you embrace this process and you get frustrated. I also embrace the frustration. I always tell myself, this is part of the process. You know, I write sermons every single week. I start with that blank sheet of paper, and you're wrestling with that. You're mulling it over, and you're thinking about it, and you're just, you know, for me, I'm praying through things, and I'm trying to get an idea of which way I'm going with this, and just trying to get new thoughts. And so, yeah, I'm just staying in it. That's my big thing. I know that's a lot, but that's just kind of how I look at it. You know, you're creating something, and it's this art form, and it's beautiful, and you get to express your soul in the middle of it. So it's fun.
Yeah, and you know what I just thought of now is you mentioned how, you're right, have to write a sermon every single week. That must require a lot of, passion and inspiration in itself. Certainly different than writing a book as well. And I'm curious to know maybe if you have any tips for, authors who maybe feel pressured to write every week as well or every single day. I mean, what do you do to come up with new ideas of what to say and what to express?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So my first thing is systems. I've got to have a system. And so for me, my system is I kind of stay a week ahead in my sermons. But the system is I take a text of scripture and I begin to mull that over. I begin to think that over. I begin to read it over and over and over. And then seeing what it says, and then seeing what the context is. And then from there, I'll read books on it. I'll read other books. People have preached these types of sermons. I'll listen to sermons. I'll listen to different things like that. And so, but I start on Monday and I start with the text. And then every morning I get up early and I spend my first 2 hours of the day working on sermon stuff. And by Thursday, I'll have it done. And then what I'll do is I'll have it outlined. And then by Friday, I send it off to the people who do my PowerPoints, and I have all that ready. And then I go to the next one and I start it all over again. So systems are so important. My whole day is structured. I read this years ago. The secret of your success is in your daily routine, and I'm very routine oriented. I have clients tomorrow and they'll finish at 10:45. I will lift weights at 10:45. I will come home and take a nap. I have online clients at 1:30. I have another podcast tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. And so all my whole day structure, my Tuesday, I'll be up, I'll do my early work, I'll do my sermon prep. Then the rest of and I have a few online, I do a lot of online clients as well. People who can't come to me in person, they love to train online. After I finish my online client at 8:30, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the rest of the day with my grandson and my wife. And so we get to watch him on Tuesdays, then back at it on Wednesday, and I go through that routine. And there are times when I take a weekend off, or I take, a week off of all that stuff to let my brain kind of recover and rest. But I think that routines are so important, because if you're just very random on what you're doing, that doesn't work for me. Maybe it works for other people. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to get things done, you have to have systems with it.
Right, I like that a lot. I mean, I do the same thing. I have a system of scheduling when I'm going to do certain types of work, or for generating ideas, or even just if I feel inspired, keeping that in a list and being able to pull from that to everything that you just said resonates a lot. Something we all need to think about.
Yeah.
So, and you did mention you think you might have another book in you. I'm curious, do you mind sharing a little bit about what that idea might be without giving it away too much?
Oh, no, absolutely. More than happy to share it. So in the first book, here's what I did. The first book, I gave a very general program, a full body program for people to get them started. And I showed them all the principles that I use. Mm-hmm. And the second book is still on weight training. It's still going to be the same thing, but there's a point in time when you need some variety. So in the first book, it's full body. In the second book, I cut my workouts in half. You do one half of your body day 1, one half of your body day 2, and then I'll probably increase that workout protocol to 3 days per week. I'll give you an example. I do upper body on Monday, I do lower body on Wednesday, I do upper body on Friday. Then the next week, I do lower body on Monday, upper body on Wednesday, lower body on Friday. Then the third book, I will cut your body into thirds, and we will work pushing movements, pulling movements, and then leg movements. So I have a whole idea. The fourth book will be advanced training techniques. And I would love to get a publisher, just a bigger publisher in the middle of that. But my publisher's been great. Set up a book tour. I've done 3 states with the book tour. So it's been fun with that as well.
That's amazing to know. I think it's great that you're not going to stop. You have more ideas out there, more things to benefit us. I know the structure of that too. So I guess that's something that for us all to look forward to in the next couple of years, to see if it'll pop up. There's many different options out there for publication, even ours too. So
Yeah.
lots of choices you can go with. So that being said, I mean, you offered us some amazing insights. We know what to look out for in the future. If anybody has any other questions for you or wants to get in touch or check out more of your stuff, where do they go?
They can go to fitnessandmore.net. And I'm also on Instagram. I'm Fitness and More STL. And then my email address is steve@fitnessandmore.net.
Easy enough. We'll have all those links in the description box of this podcast. So when we're done today, you can go ahead and click those, check it out, and really immerse yourself in the resources. Because as already mentioned, this applies to everybody. Everybody can practice this and really embody it. It's about your health, your mental well-being, your physical well-being. And not to mention coming from a really cool guy who's got some great insights. So I appreciate this. Thank you so much for all you've shared with us today.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you. You're a great host. So thank you so much.
That means a lot. Thank you. But before we do wrap up, any last bits of advice for our listeners? Any pieces of homework they should take home with them today?
Well, here's what I would say. Weight training is medicine for your body. Walking is medicine for your soul. And food is medicine for your health. And so my whole thing is that all the things that I put together, they're helpful for you, but they're also medicine for you.
I like that a lot. Yeah, health for you and medicine for you. Just as, this whole episode has been, I could argue that.
Right.
So yeah, thank you again for all of that. It's really been a pleasure. To anybody listening, and first off, I just want to say, remember what Steve says. I have a quote here from your book too. Weight training is medicine for your body, medicine for your brain. Watching you diet is medicine for your biology. So
Yes.
There's something we can all take away from today's conversation. It's that simple, consistent actions can lead to profound changes in how we age and live. If you enjoyed this episode, please pick up a copy of The Gospel of Fitness to learn more about Steve's approach to aging gracefully. And as always, our mission at Authors on Mission is to empower you with the knowledge and confidence to become an expert in your field as well. So please, until next time, keep moving forward on your mission for excellence. And remember, the best chapter you might be the one you're about to write. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. And thanks for joining us, Steve.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun. Thank you.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.